Hello and welcome back to Abilene People, our podcast here on bigcountryhomepage.com, where we always talk to Abilene's most interesting people. And today, that is definitely the case because we have a poet, an author, university professor, and the son of a military guy and a poetry mother, Dr. Stephen Moore. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks
Yes.
for being here. So you were born and raised where?
I was born and raised in Quantico, Virginia.
FBI territory.
That's right. That's right. And it's all because of my dad, with his work involved with the military, FBI, CIA. So that's why we had to be there.
But your mom wasn't an FBI, CIA type. She was a poet.
That's correct. That's correct. A poet, teacher. She also did a little stint with the medical field, but definitely a poet through and through.
So your dad was a military guy, FBI guy, CIA type guy. Your mom was a poet.
Right.
You became a poet.
That's right.
But you have a twin brother who became I don't know, was it law enforcement or military?
He decided to go into the military, and he made a career out of it. So he went into the Air Force and then decided to go into the Marines and became an officer in the Marines.
Okay. Did you ever consider going to the military?
I did. There were a couple of times in my life where I thought maybe I should try out the military, but it just, I don't know. I think down the road, I just felt like, no, I think I need to go into teaching. But really, it was politics. And then I was a psychology major. And then I ended up down the path of being English.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I would imagine that the trip from politics to poetry is a pretty interesting trip. I don't know. It just seems to me. I don't think a lot of politicians today are also poets.
That's right. That's right. It's an interesting pathway. But I do know that there's some poets, they sound political.
Okay.
So I can see the connection that way.
Okay.
But
All right.
I love being a poet. Absolutely love it.
And you are a poetry a workshop practitioner. I mean, where you
correct.
teach people to do poetry. And
That's correct.
I'm not the cheesy limericks that I write. You know, there once was a guy named Stephen. You know, he did something. I had to get even. You know?
Yeah.
And what is more? His name was more, but now I can't rhyme with even. So.
Okay. Hey, that's pretty good.
Hey,
I will give you an A.
Oh well, you're very gracious. So what happens at a poetry workshop?
So and by the way, I also teach literature classes. Like I love teaching American literature, but really poetry, creative writing, that's where I belong. But in a poetry workshop class, I just teach them the elements of writing poetry, and I try to expose them to all the great thinkers out there in the field and some of the great poets out there. And so we'll read a lot of poetry, listen to advice that they have to give, and then I try to inspire them to write their own poetry. And they get special assignments, and when they write a poem, like the first poetry assignment may say, hey, I want you to write about a storm-filled moment in your life, an awful day that you had to experience. And so they all write a poem based on that. And then we'll come together as a workshop class and we'll critique each and every poem in the class.
Are these academic classes or just like weekend deals that normal Joes can take? Or?
Oh, that's a good question. So this is an academic class. And sometimes I do special workshop classes. And I know people in town here, they like to audit classes. But it's a academic course.
All right, now this is the podcast where it's like Wonder Woman's rope of truth. I'm gonna lash you with the rope of truth. At some point, you got to read some poems that are really, really good.
Okay. Yeah.
And at some point, you got to read some poems that aren't so good.
Okay.
So what do you get more of? You get more really good, or do you get some? Well, I don't know about that.
Oh wow. Okay, I would say probably in the middle. I think.
Oh, you are a politician.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Maybe so. But in the beginning, I should say this. In the beginning, they're experimenting and they're learning, and so their poems are okay. Now, some of them you can tell that they've been reading and writing for a long time, and so it comes out in their assignments. But I don't expect for the first or two poems, the poetry assignments to be like rocking. Or out of this earth, but it takes time to fine tune your own style and structure.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah.
you've written how many books? And some are
Oh wow.
poetry books, but
That's
some are
right.
non-poetry, just narrative books,
That's
right?
right. That's right. So I've written some children's books, and I've written. Of course, I love to write poetry. So I had my first poetry collection, and then I write. I had to do some scholarly books in order to get tenure at because university professors this commanded upon them to hurry up and contribute something to the scholarly community. So I had to hurry up and do that. I enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong, but my heart belongs with. I love creating art and love poetry.
And you wrote your first book of poetry and dedicated it to your mom.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Explain
And
that a little bit.
so I decided my mom passed away unexpectedly in 2018. And my mom was just poetry. And when I was well, she said this when she was pregnant with me and my twin, she would always read poetry, recite poetry. And then when we were welcomed into the world and we're growing as tall as trees, she would always talk uh, poetic. She would provide us poetic lines. She would recite poetry all the time. So that's why I decided when she passed away, all of a sudden, I think I'm here. Of course, I'm honoring my mom and my dad, but I wanted to dedicate this to her because of her love of poetry. And it was contagious. And I just happened to fall in love with poetry because of her.
I hope you don't mind me asking.
No, go ahead.
But you said your mom passed away very unexpectedly.
That's right.
How did you get word she passed?
Well, so I got word that she was very ill on and off for a year or so. And then I was contacted by my father. He said, maybe you should come home. She's doing okay, but it doesn't look, she's up and down, up and down. So I decided to go home and I visited her. And it seems like she was getting stronger and it seemed like she was going to do well, but she just took a turn for the worse. And just will never forget that. And my twin brother was there, but my oldest brother wasn't able to make it back home.
And where was home then for your folks?
That was Illinois.
Okay.
Illinois.
And now, I don't know that we said this already, but
Yeah.
you're here in Abilene. You're a professor at Abilene Christian University.
Oh, that's correct.
You got your master's and your Ph.D. from the University of Nebraska.
That's right. Cornhuskers.
So you are a Cornhusker.
That's right. That's right.
So I don't know. It seems to me a PhD in literature, is that
that's right.
Is that a fair way to say what your PhD's in?
That's right.
It seems like to me that would involve an awful lot of reading. Did you
yes.
ask for books with lots of pictures?
I should have. It was a lot of work. I had to read a lot of literature and I had to read a lot of scholarly writings from the critics. And so, yeah, I definitely had to wade in the water of my field, which was American literature. So I definitely, that's where my home is, and African American literature. But really, creative writing didn't take off until later on in my life.
You mentioned you wrote a couple of children's books, right?
That's right.
And I think there's a character, maybe the protagonist in the book. I don't know if that's the way to describe the character or not, but it's a little guy named Theodore Thumbs.
Oh,
or something.
that's right. That's right.
And in the stories, he's bullied.
Right.
Right. I don't know. I got to ask. Is that autobiographical? Or?
It is. It's partly autobiographical, and so while growing up, my brothers, I'll just say this, they used to pick on me all the time because I would suck my thumb. So they gave me a nickname, and so Sucky Thumb was my nickname, and they would just joke around. But then I got older. And that's when I was picked on in school, and kids didn't like what they saw on the outside. And so I was bullied. But then I noticed some of the other classmates were bullied. And so years later, that's when I decided, you write what you know. And so I thought, I'm going to do a children's book series on bullying because I had problems with it. And I know people left and right have problems with it. And so that's why I decided to do it. And it's not just K through 12. I'd see it even in college or outside of college or as adults, people are bullied. So I just thought that was a topic to write on. And so Theodore Thumbs, the name of the series was Sucky Thumb, but the publishers and some of the people around me said, oh, it's not going to sell well. You need to change the name. So that's why it was changed to Theodore Thumbs.
Interesting.
So yes.
So let's visit the idea of bullying.
Okay.
You know, if you look at our culture today, it
Yeah.
seems like bullying is more prevalent than it would have been. Not that you're old,
Right.
but even when you were a kid. You know,
Right.
I'm much older than you, and I
Yeah.
remember when I was a kid. You know, bullies were a thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It seems like it's even more of a thing today.
Oh, I absolutely agree with you. And it's so frustrating. Like so I'll go and I'll visit different schools, not just elementary schools, but high schools and colleges, universities, and then they'll have me at special venues. But I'm just blown away what kids are saying these days and how they're bullied. And because of cell phones and Instagram and Facebook, social media, it's really a different form from when I was growing up and being bullied. But I get testimonies from kids where they'll say that they're being harassed online and being made fun of online. But it's a whole nother world. But it's just so sad. It's so tragic. I just hate that.
I saw an interview with a professor from UC San Diego, and I wish I could recall her name. Very impressive lady, but she made a point about what you just said about the nature of social media,
Right.
and how it's controlling so much of our thought world.
Right.
Uh, I don't know.
Oh,
We just saw this horrific assassination
oh,
of
yes.
of a
Right.
political activist
Right.
recently, and apparently the guy that they've fingered as having done it spent a tremendous amount of time online.
Right.
You know, somebody said we would describe that as extensively online, like that's almost like a diagnosable
Right.
kind of amount.
Right.
Do you think, from where you sit as a college professor, that young
Right.
people would be better off if the internet had never come along?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And what happened last week was just unthinkable. But yes, I definitely could trace that as a result of social media and what people are feeding their minds. But I've noticed, like, even when I'm teaching, I have a new policy right now in my class, like no laptops and no cell phones. They have to put them in their bags. And I'm noticing a dramatic difference. And
What's the difference?
they are like paying attention. They're in tune to what I'm saying. They're listening carefully to what if we're having a discussion over a poem or a short story or novel, they are there with me. And they don't have these distractions.
Earlier in past
Right.
semesters, you would have allowed them to have these distractions.
That's correct.
And it was just like a naivete thinking, well, you know, they're mature kids.
Right.
They're in college. They're paying for this. They're going to pay attention.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And then you realize that wasn't the case.
Right. That's right. And I just noticed I started talking to other colleagues, and I started traveling to when I'm doing conferences and talking to other professors at different schools, and they noticed the same problem. And that's where I did some research and decided, okay, I'm going to come up with a policy, and I'm going to do what some other professors are doing. And there's a few of us at ACU that do it. No technology at all. And it's a glorious, wonderful, like I love it where they have their notebooks, of course, and you hear the writing going on. They're taking notes and they're writing down questions and writing down insights and observations, but they are paying attention and I can see their eyes. And my twin brother and I were talking about this. I miss the times where I would drive into a neighborhood and I would see kids outside playing. Like the sun is out, they're enjoying the weather, they are in community with each other. But now I've noticed when you drive into certain neighborhoods, the streets are empty. And I think it's because of social media. And my students have been very open and honest with me, and they've told me how many hours that they spend each and every day on it. It's definitely a cancer. I see where it's destroying the ability for us to communicate. And what's so sad, to go back to what happened to Charlie Kirk, like for this individual to just immerse himself online and not be in community with people, just based on what I'm hearing so far, that's what becomes, so dangerous.
Well, and, it is dangerous.
Yes.
And it's hard to talk about because you're concerned about sound bites.
Right.
You're concerned about clickbaits. You know,
Right.
even in this moment, I'm concerned about what I'm about to say, lest somebody should take it, clip it, and put it out there and say,
Right.
you know, look at this guy, how insensitive.
Yeah.
But I'm going to take a shot anyway. So no even horrible wording there, right? Take a shot anyway.
Right.
But it seems to me that when we are in such a divided community at large, our culture is so divided, and there's so much heat in everything that's said, and people are lobbing things back and forth verbally at one another, that we're well served to calm down and realize that sometimes the people that are the targets of our vitriol are actually the people that are most at risk to do something harmful to themselves or to us.
Yes.
You know, I mean, but just think for a second about, well, you know, this guy that shot him, you know, he's trans, or he's living with a trans partner, almost unaware that if the only engagement we have toward trans people is continued marginalization and spewing vitriol toward them, that they might do harm to themselves or somebody in the community.
Right.
It just doesn't add up to me that we're better than this, right?
Yes,
I don't. Is what I'm saying making any sense?
What you're saying, what you are saying makes complete sense to me, and it really saddens me a great deal. If you think about this country, the United States of America, it just saddens me about how divided we are, the divided states of America. It's just so painful for me to look and to notice what's going on. But I think you are absolutely correct with that assessment.
You have to have, well, I know you have, because I read a little bit about what you've written. And I know that, well, in fact, do you mind if
go right ahead. Yes.
My friend Loretta Fulton interviewed you in the spring of this year for the Spirit of Abilene. And you say in that interview that you witnessed Black rage in your family and community while growing up.
Right.
So you've seen rage.
Right.
You've seen Black rage. But I just to be totally frank, I don't mean to minimize Black rage, but I've seen white rage.
Right.
You know, we it's easy for us, again, maybe because of social media, where we don't know the people we're engaging with, and we just say things that we never really would say in person.
Right.
There's a lot of rage.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And so at the University of Nebraska, in my Ph.D. program, of course, with the dissertation, we had to explore a topic. So it was just a narrow topic, or I should say, I had to run with the topic. And so it was African American rage. But while I was investigating the phenomenon of Black rage or African American rage, I also studied white rage of other communities. But I think when I step back and think about all the books I've read about anger and about rage, I've just noticed that there are some things that I've noticed that are in common. And I don't know. I think in this country right now, 2025, there's a lot of rage being expressed. And so you can say Black rage, you can say white rage, you can say whatever it is. Like I've just noticed that we're having a very difficult time expressing ourselves these days. And it's to the point where I wonder if we're not going to be able to communicate with anyone anymore. In fact, I remember like having a class, and the students are just debating a topic. And many of the students, they were building walls, erecting walls and barriers, and demonizing the other side. Like if someone disagrees with me on this topic, I'm going to demonize them. And then all of a sudden I saw the rage, the anger rise up, and they're mad because the people are not jumping on my side, and then vice versa. And I'm just like, whoa, this is the problem. And so I just wish we could just take a deep breath, as you mentioned, take a deep breath in this culture and come to the table and talk and roll up our sleeves and see what we can do to make improvements. But it just saddens me how angry we are these days.
Yeah, we are. We are angry. And I don't know that there's any going back. I used to have a real hopeful attitude that the genie could be put back in the bottle.
Right.
Now, I don't know. And it seems to me, though, how we behave now, right now, after last week,
Yeah.
with the Charlie Kirk shooting is as important a moment as you and I'm again much older than you, but as we've lived through.
Right. Right.
It's even more than after 9/11,
Right.
when we needed to be very careful about how we treated our neighbors who were Muslim,
Mm-hmm.
how we treated our neighbors that we wanted to blame.
Yeah.
We had to be very careful in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, it seems like we need that same care to be taken right now. Who's leading us in our culture, in your opinion,
Right.
toward being careful? Anybody?
Right. Oh, that's a great question. I wonder about that. That is a great question. And when I look at our government, when I look into the field of politics, I just wonder if those political leaders, are they doing enough to unite us? It just seems like we have so many people who are engineering all of this hatred and all of this divisions that are taking place left and right. I think some of them are responsible for that. But you're right. This is a wake up call for us right now. This is a watershed moment right now in our country, I think, where we're going to have to do something because I wonder what's the direction, what's the future. And again, I think that's why it's so important for us to have leaders, political leaders, or if you think about religious leaders, I think the leaders need to rise up and we've got to do something. And right now, all I see is that people are just picking sides. They're just jumping on sides and they're not doing anything to try to unite all of us.
And we live in a time where we could easily see in our community an unmarked van pull up and a person, probably a brown person, be targeted, put inside the van and driven off for several hours of rough questioning. Maybe not even rough, just questioning. But it sure seems rough if you were, taking no warrant and all. And just these are, I guess what I'm saying is these are really volatile times we're living in.
Right.
Aside from what happened last week in Utah with this political activist, these are times we're living in where these kind of things are happening, where military units are in our cities.
Right.
This is palpable and real. And we seem a little detached from it in Abilene, Texas, because I don't think ICE is here, or I don't think we're going to see the National Guard here. I don't think.
Right.
But we see it in our neighbors in other states and other cities.
Yes.
So what's happening in our culture?
Right. Yes, you are right. And by the way, these are disturbing images that we're seeing when we are looking, if we're reading the newspaper, if we're watching the news. These are horrific images that we're taking in. But I agree with you 100%. I think again, we have to take a deep breath right now, and when we have to galvanize people. We have to wake people up. But again, I want to go back to the what you were saying about the social media. I think we've desensitized ourselves, and it's the social media that makes us that way, where we don't see people as blood and flesh. I'm so absorbed with social media that I no longer see humanity in front of me anymore. And so I think if you are taking in social media day in and day out, you're just your heart is going to start changing and becoming cold and becoming metallic and hard. And so it's going to be difficult for you to see another human being as yourself. And so that's the problem, I think.
You let's get back to poetry for a minute, because as a poet, you have said, I write because I believe in a better tomorrow for all. That is what writers do.
Right.
That is what poets do. You still believe that?
Wow. Okay. I'm trying to think when I had that interview with Loretta Fulton. That was a wonderful interview. Wow. For you to ask me that now, I would say several years ago when I had that interview with Loretta, I did believe in that. Now I want to say I do, but it's just hard. It's just hard right now to say that I believe it. I try to teach my students over and over again that poetry and writing poetry and reading poetry, These are things to do to try to bring healing in your life and healing to the world. But I don't know. That's
Many years ago, I had the opportunity to visit with Condoleezza Rice, such an interesting person. And I asked her, what is the most important word of advice you could give a divided country? And of course, we're talking over 10 years ago, the country wasn't quite as divided as it is today. But she said something so interesting. She said, I would advise you and everyone to read and listen to 3 different news sources every day. Don't listen to just conservative. Don't listen to just liberal. Don't even listen to just what we would call mainstream. Select 3 different ones every single day and read and change up your diet. I think that's another dynamic at work here, because it's not just our disappearing into the rabbit holes of social media, but we consume almost always a very partisan perspective from news sources, because if I'm a liberal, I only watch MSNBC. If I'm a conservative, I only watch Fox News. And just imagine if all you hear really is Reverend Al on MSNBC, or the former sportscaster on Fox News who said that we should have involuntary lethal injection of the homeless population to just kill them. Just
I heard that.
What? I don't know that a diet like that could possibly. But if I had to choose between one, give me Reverend Al. Come on. But the point being, you can't have a one-sided diet, but that is what many people in America do.
Yeah, absolutely. But I love that you interviewed Condoleezza Rice, and so that's great that she said that. And I see the value of that. Even when I'm talking to my students and I tell them, okay, if you're reading literature, don't just read one specific genre, but read from diverse authors, diverse poets, diverse thinkers, diverse scholars, diverse critics, and you'll see your world getting larger. And I even tell them, think about the people in your community. Don't just hang around people who think the way you think. To me, I'm not challenged by that. It's good to hang out with people who, you all got a lot in common, but I try to encourage my students, invite people who don't look like you, don't talk like you, don't think like you. Invite them into your home. Invite them to sit at your table, because you're going to learn and you're going to grow. And don't think that you have everything correct in your life. You got to be willing to listen.
Well, there's the problem, as you talked about earlier, building the walls and throwing things at the other side, because those are the very people you're encouraging them to break down the walls and get to know. Well, I mean, it's pretty tough to do if all you have is insults.
Right.
So I'm curious. I'm a product of Abilene Christian University, so I feel I can say this with some degree of credibility, just from my own perspective. But it's been a long time. I'll admit that it's been a long time. But when I was there, Abilene Christian was a mostly white student body. I would imagine most of your students are not students of color, unless white's a color, and they're white students. Is that fair to? Is that my speculation?
Yes.
So how do your white students engage when you say, "I want you to read these Black authors"? I want you to read authors of color. I want you to read from a different perspective. Do they say, "I'm not buying that," or do they eagerly get the books and read them?
That's such a good question. Well, especially in the age of AI, I definitely don't want them to get the summaries online or let AI do all the homework. But no,
and is that a problem?
And that's the problem. I would say that is a huge problem right now.
So.
But I would say, and I know ACU, and you know this, is slowly becoming diverse. I think we do have a diverse population. In fact, I think we have 7,000 students if you include our Dallas campus. So we are expanding. We do have a diverse population. But I've noticed in my classes, in my African American literature class, there's about, this is out of 45 students, there's 7 of us where we are African American. But I would say most of my white students, after I talk with them about the importance of reading and how reading will help you grow and expand your minds, I think there's a good percentage of them, they actually do take what I'm saying to heart and they do read. And I love it when those students at the end of the semester come up to me and they'll confess, this is how I was at the beginning of your class. This is how I thought about the world, or I thought about the African-American community. But now I've noticed I'm a different person because of the discussions and the conversations that we had in class. So I would say there's some really do take it hard and change. And then there are others where, oh, I don't want to hear it at all. And do you have because if you're teaching African-American literature, sometimes they'll say, do you have a political agenda? And should I trust what you're saying? And I've told my grandparents, or told my parents that, oh, I'm taking African-American literature with Dr. Stephen Moore. And they'll go, oh, be careful of what he says to you, or be careful of banned literature or African-American literature. It's dangerous. It's political. It's going to corrupt you. Like some students have confessed that to me.
It's funny you mentioned the banned literature. I was watching an interview recently with Ta-Nehisi Coates, and he said that a book he had written was banned in South Carolina. And so what did he do? He went to South Carolina. And he talked with the people. He talked with them. And he talked with the middle-aged white teacher who had assigned his book and that had been banned. Anyway, long story short, my understanding is the book was reinstituted. And she was very delighted. And she was very delighted that he came. But it was the engagement. He said, let's talk about this, because I think maybe you misconstrue. And it would be easy, right? For a bunch of, boy, here I go painting with a really large brush, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. Easy for a bunch of white people to have a negative view about a Black intellectual, present company excluded, but a really smart Black author who challenges some of their presuppositions. So the easiest thing would be to get him off our list.
Right.
I mean, is that making sense? Does that resonate?
It resonates.
Have you heard this story?
And so I love that Ta-Nehisi Coates went out of his way and reached out to that teacher and decided to go visit.
And I may have some of the details wrong.
I think
all that,
Right.
And that's one of those stories, like one of my favorite AC professors, Benny Galloway, used to say. He would say, even if it's not true, don't you wish it was? but I think it's true.
I love that.
I think it's true.
Yes. Well, we had Cornel West was in Abilene. I don't know if you knew about that over the summer.
Come on.
Yes, Cornel West and Robert P. George, and I think that's right, because the two of them. So Robert P. George is a professor at Harvard, and he's a white scholar and professor. And then you have Cornel West, and sometimes they travel to different schools and they debate each other. And they were here back in June for the Christian Scholars Conference, and Cornel West and Dr. George, they were on the same stage. And it was awesome what they were doing, going back and forth. But they modeled for us, this is how you can have a debate or a conversation where you have two people at polar opposite ends of each other, but they can still be in community. Like, they model that for us. And I just love how Cornel pointed out, and I had a chance to meet with him and talk with him. Even before, when he was in Abilene, I met him up at TCU. But he just talks about the importance of getting people to read diverse books, and it'll change their world. And I know even when I'm working with my students, there's a lens that they're looking out of as they're interpreting the world. There's a lens that I'm looking out of. And sometimes we just get so absorbed with ourselves that we are unwilling to take off the lens and try to imagine life from the perspective of another person. So that's another thing that I think we need to do this day and age.
Did you enjoy? I mean, I know you did. So let me ask the question a different way. What did you enjoy about hanging out with Cornel West a little bit?
Oh, I just enjoy. Okay, I love how he says brother and sister too. Doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
Funny? Is he funny?
He's so funny. He is so. Hey, look! If I were to grow my hair out, my hair would look just like his. I should go ahead and do it. Get that gray and black. But he is so funny, and he's so energized. And whenever he talks, there's a cadence, there's a rhythm to it, and he reminds you of just a Sunday Baptist minister. But he's so brilliant, so scholarly. And he's able to quote from anything and everything. But it was just so much fun spending time with him.
And I'm sure that on the intellectual spectrum, he's just at a different level than the vast majority of people.
Right, right.
You're a lot closer to that than me. How do you do it? How do you
Right.
remember all of that?
Oh,
How do you? It's just incredible, huh?
but it's in your heart. I bet you do the same thing though. I bet if books resonate with you, like there's so many things that I've read I love to quote from, like, "Oh me, oh life, of the questions of these recurring, of the endless trains of the faithless, what good to amid thee, oh me, oh life." And so I just think when you study something over and over again, especially when you're teaching, and if you have four of the same class, eventually you'll start reciting it from heart. But that's what I think a lot of people like him. That's what they're able to do. But
Well, see, Steve, that's the difference between you and me, because for me, I can recite passages from Ghostbusters. You remind me of Gozar the Traveler. He will come into the pre-chosen forms. You're
Yes,
in expectation of the Valdrana. The traveler came as a largely moving torque.
wow. Okay.
I can't do the literature. It's Ghostbusters.
But you know what? This is one thing I appreciate about Dr. Cornel West. He shows us how movies like that,
Yes,
that's literature.
yes. But he also takes very seriously the engagement of people where they are,
Right.
because
Right.
there are people that
Right.
is the only literature they will know.
Right.
And
Right.
so he's not so highbrow.
Right. Right.
But I think you're that way too. You come across as
I
very
appreciate you
reasonable, is very accessible.
Right.
And you want literature to be accessible.
Yes. Yes.
So do you sometimes run across a student who's
Mhm.
from some small community in Texas, who for some reason signed up for your class, and then
Right.
they just fall in love with it?
Oh yes. Oh yes. That does happen, and I love it when those moments happen when they look at me and said, "Look, I've never read a book in my life until now," or they'll say, "I've never even heard of a slave narrative, or I never even heard of Cornel West or Ta-Nehisi Coates or Bell Hooks or Toni Morrison. I never heard of The Bluest Eye until this class, or Native Son by Richard Wright until this class." So I love how they recognize the fact, okay, the more I read, the more I put away technology, and the more I just take the book, because I tell my students, have an active conversation, have a pen and pencil in hand while reading, and make reading come to life. Let those words lift up from the pages. So I do like that when some will confess that because of the reading, because of the curriculum, because of the things they had to do in my class, it changed them. So I love to hear that.
I mentioned earlier that I saw an interview with a professor from UC San Diego. I mentioned that some of the things she had said, but one thing she said that you just reminded me of was that if the young man who killed Charlie Kirk had never owned a computer with online access, he would be probably at university today,
Right.
maybe in your class or a class like yours,
Yeah.
and Charlie Kirk would be alive with his wife and two children.
Right.
And I'm struck by that. I can't quit thinking about that.
Mm.
Obviously, that's a very different world, but a very different world if people would
Mm.
put away their mouse and quit clicking the mouse to go into their screens,
Right.
and would just pick up a book and read.
Right. Right. What that professor said is spot on. I absolutely will co-sign on the dotted line. And again, what a moment. Like, I remember the professors in our workroom in the Department of Language and Literature, we were just talking about it and just expressing our feelings about what had happened, and just saying to ourselves, what are we doing? But again, this is that watershed moment. We've got to do something differently. And I wish I could gather up all the laptops and cell phones and just get rid of them. Because again, I think there's just something about and there's some things that technology can do that's good. I think you would agree with that. But then there's just the enormous things that it just causes so much damage, and it's allowing us to fall apart as a culture. And again, when I looked into that young man's eyes, it's just, boy, it just stirs me up what could have been. Like, I do imagine that's a great point that you made. Like, if he hadn't immersed himself with social media, he probably would still be here today.
And it's easy, as you said, to discount because there is good that comes from, interacting in a gaming community for sure. There's
Right.
good that comes from social media for sure.
Right.
I remember, and I'll counsel both of us as we draw toward conclusion. This might be a rabbit hole for a different time, and I'd love to have you back. By the way,
Oh, good,
I'd
good.
love
Oh, I
to.
would
I'd
love
love
this.
to.
This is great.
But I think it was a Duke theologian, Stanley Hauerwas, who said very provocatively about 25, 30 years ago, somebody was asking him if we were better off after the proliferation of Bibles and the availability of Bibles after the printing press. And then in this era, digital media was just coming into the fore. And they asked him about the accessibility and availability of the scriptures through digital media. And he said, if it was up to me, I'd take all the Bibles and throw them into the ocean.
Wow.
And he said, reason is because people misuse and abuse the Bibles.
Yes.
And he says, so many people think that the last book of the Bible is concordance, and they go there to look for a verse that will support what they already believe.
Right.
And he says that's a horrible use of the scriptures, and one that for the vast majority of ages, people never had access to.
Right.
They would have heard stories. They would have encountered God out on lonely star-filled nights where they would have meditated and contemplated and maybe written some poetry.
Right. Right.
So I want to ask you, how do you react to that?
Right. Okay. I love what that professor said. I've been in some situations where you just name what the controversy of the day is, and people would just go back to the index or go back in their Bibles to the index and read all those verses that will help solidify their argument. And that's all that they concentrate on. But I do see exactly what that professor is saying. And
are we better off today than if we lived in a kind of a dark sky community where you can see all the stars?
Right. Right.
Now, look, I'm going to confess. Tonight, it's Monday night. I'm going to watch Monday Night Football.
Right.
I watch football all weekend. So I don't want to really move to a dark sky community, but I wonder if I'd be better off if I did.
Oh, so good. I just love what you're saying. So that's why I love Henry David Thoreau. He's one of my favorite, many favorite poets.
He's a nut. Oh. He's a nut. He moves out in the middle of nowhere. Okay, yes. He's a nut.
Oh, but think about it. He's a good nut. Now think about this. Henry David Thoreau, like he would say, there are millions upon millions upon millions of people who are sleepwalking. Only 1 in a million awake enough for a divine calling. And so I just think, like, as we move about in our lives, like a lot of us are just going through the motions. A lot of us are just sleepwalking, but we're not really connecting with the stars, not connecting with the moon, not connecting with the sun, and not connecting with the divine. And I think if we did more of that, if we could just spend more time outside, and you are right, with the experiment that he did, but at least his words they're in the right place. I think we need to spend more time outside and away from buildings and away from all these distractions, and take a deep breath and listen to the stars and look at the stars and write about what we see. Because I think my favorite movie of all time is Dead Poets Society. And I love how that professor shows all of the students, listen, there is a poet in you. He challenges all of them, because all of them in there, they thought, I'm not a poet. And poetry is just so boring and dull and doesn't relate to me. And he shows them, no, you are a poet. And I see poets all around me. And I just think a lot of times they just don't know it. And I don't know, maybe they ought to read more poetry and watch Dead Poets Society and get that inspiration. And to realize, because in that movie, I love it where he says, you're on this stage of life, and you probably remember that scene, and he says, what will your verse be? And I just think for my students, for myself, and for people I encounter, I think we need to be mindful of that. What are you doing here on this planet? And for that man that killed Charlie Kirk, like, what is your role in life? What is the verse that you're going to contribute? And I just think we need to be reminded, man, I've got something with the gifts and talents that were blessed to me. I've got to do something beautiful with them and not destroy and hate. I don't know. I just think we need that message.
Well, Captain, my Captain.
Oh, you're getting to me.
I'm wondering if you want to
Yes.
close us out with either reciting or reading. If you brought something, I see some
yes.
papers.
Okay.
Just a little bit of poetry.
Oh, that sounds
And as
good.
you move toward making your selection, I will say that if people are looking, if somebody hears this and they're looking for an opportunity, I'm assuming they could. What I mean by that is an opportunity to step away from the vitriol and the
Right.
isolation and the rabbit holes of digital media and dabble in poetry.
Yes.
If they wanted to do that, I'm sure you would encourage them.
Oh, yes.
And B, I'm assuming that you have some recommendations for them.
Oh, absolutely.
So give us a couple of recommendations and then close us out with some poetry.
This is so good. This is good. So I would definitely tell them to run out there, grab a book by Mary Oliver or Langston Hughes or Jericho Brown, Ocean Vuong, William Carlos Williams, Naomi Nye. She is so incredible. And just run out there and read their poems. And then also Billy Collins. Like, I love Billy Collins because he's so funny with his poetry. But to read poetry, let the words just wash over you, and they'll see a difference. And it's just so incredible. Poetry
and
would do that.
Moore. And Stephen Moore.
Oh, yeah, they can get, oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, if they want to get one of my books, go to 7 in 1 and get The Horizon Never Forgets. And they can read some poetry, read some of my poems. And this is one of them in the book. This is called They Carried Me Home Over Their Shoulders. A yellow house on the corner, white trim, wide open windows, red door, an elderly woman wearing a sunflower apron emerges, waves at me. The wind hums, branches sway, golden pheasants from afternoon dreams lead me into the woods. I imitate the tall trees, run away, follow the sun. The wind tastes like home. A calm river flows inside me. I hear my grandmother's voice, lift my hands, wave at the silver clouds. They surprise me, swoop down, pick me up. They carry me home over their shoulders.
The wind tastes like home. And what was the line? I hear my grandmother's voice.
That's right. That's right. The wind tastes like home. A calm river flows inside me. I hear my grandmother's voice. And that's when I lift my hands.
Well, there you have it. One of Abilene's most interesting people, for sure. And there's something awfully calming about that poem. Thank you so much.
Good. Oh, thank you.
Dr. Stephen Moore.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here with us on this episode of Abilene People. We will be back with another one of Abilene's most interesting people. In fact, our next podcast is with Head of Construction for the Abilene Data Center, that ginormous 4 million square foot facility being built on Abilene's west side. So we look forward to that. Look forward to you joining us. And a big shout out to our producer, Travis Corrigan, TC, or we call him TCB because he's taking care of business, making sure that everything's set for you here on Abilene People. And my name's Danny Sims. I'm the host. And I'm glad that we spent this time together with Dr. Stephen Moore of Abilene Christian University, and glad you were with us. And we will see you next time here on BigCountryHomepage.com and Abilene People.